Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this webcast. My name is Jim Patterson with Microsoft. Today, our topic is going to be the PMO's modern workplace and the benefits of moving to project online. Just a little bit of a housekeeping. The lines are muted during the course of the webinar, though the question panel is available in GoToWebinar. We will be monitoring the question panel, and then given time permitted, we can answer during the course via the chat panel or address your questions at the end, time permitting. If not, if we don't get to all of the questions that are on there, we'll be happy to email you answers at the conclusion of the webinar. If you do get pulled away or distracted in any way, we will be sending you a link to the recording of the webinar today and also a copy of the slides that are being presented. So those should be available to you as well shortly after the webinar. So with that, let's get started with today's topic. And some of the topics we'll be covering today is some items regarding the evolution of the PMO and what the modern PMO is about. We'll talk about some of the PMO challenges and trends that are being faced today. And then when we talk about moving to project online as a PPM solution, we'll talk about the benefits and the return on investment for that move. We'll also talk about the PMO capabilities that are inherent in project online, and there's a rich set of capabilities that we'll go through today. And then we'll talk about migration approaches and considerations as part of this, and to take some of the mystery out of that as well. We'll just do a slight demonstration today just to poke around and show you the capabilities that are there. We've done some more detailed webinars that are available in our on-demand webinars at Microsoft that you can get to at any time regarding just overall execution and how to use Project Online effectively from an end-to-end PPM process enablement, but we'll cover just a little bit of the benefits of being in the cloud and how those things are represented in there today as well. We'll follow up with some summary and some next steps, as well as some special offers for you for signing up and for attending our webinar today. So with that, let's get started. One of the big drivers for project and portfolio management today is the move into digital transformation. And digital transformation is affecting most organizations today. As a matter of fact, CEOs consider digital their #1 priority to a large extent. PwC CEO survey found that 86% of CEOs considered it their #1 priority, given that the world is moving into a digital age, and the fact that not only from a technology perspective, but just from a business model and how we reach our customers perspective and how we stay relevant in the marketplace, it is a lifeblood type of issue and a success or failure type of issue for many businesses today. Now, these are all usually managed and enabled, these digital transformation projects, along with all the other projects that we may be working on within an organization. So it is a projectized project and portfolio management type of challenge. Sadly enough today, even though we've been addressing this for many decades and enhancing our tools and our capabilities and our processes, projects still often fall short of their potential in organizations. If we look at the pulse of the profession from the Project Management Institute, surveyed companies said that only 43% of surveyed companies reported a high alignment between projects and strategies, meaning from a top down, you identify your strategies, and then you try to identify projects or initiatives that support those strategies and really focus and work on the things that directly support where the company wants to go from a strategic perspective. Only 43% of surveyed companies report that they have high alignment with those strategies, meaning that there's a lot of room for growth there. Now, that means, are we doing the right projects, right? It's about selection and what we're choosing to spend time, money, and resources on, and are they furthering the stated objectives of the company? Now, on the lower axis, it's about doing the projects right or executing well. And in that realm, the survey found that 62% of companies or 62% of projects on average are meeting their goals, meaning, meeting the goals of delivering what they say they're going to deliver, being on time and on budget. And that number has stayed pretty level since about 2012, meaning that we've reached a point where we need to have some innovation in order to extend that or further that. Now, if we look at this from a grid perspective, like you see here, if only 43% of companies are doing the right projects consistently and 62% of projects are not executing right, then look at the untapped potential. If we can increase our execution effectiveness, and if we can have better alignment, we could have a lot of potential realized within our organizations just by addressing these two matters. So for example, if we're doing the wrong projects, but we're doing them really well, have we really delivered? And the answer, I would think, is probably not, or at least not optimum. So the PMO evolution and lessons learned over time is, when the PMO concept began with an organization, it really was about delivering consistent, repeatable processes within organizations so that we can have consistent results. And these days, just executing, enabling, and monitoring process doesn't really deliver much in today's economy. Process-driven and having a good process is an enablement and a means to an end, but it's really not a be-all and end-all in and of itself. The idea is delivering the project or delivering or consistently managing a process isn't enough. We have to be delivering real value to organizations. Even IT PMOs today, even the focus of IT is really not so much about technology as it is about adding and delivering value to the overall business. Another piece is resource capacity. It always matters. Early on, a lot of organizations would say, hey, our resources are sunk costs, and we'll just take on the work, and in heroic fashions, we're just going to get it done. We just get it done and we don't say no was always a mantra in many organizations. Well, in reality, resource capacity always matters. There is no free lunch. If you overcommit or commit unknowingly, not in alignment with our ability to deliver resourcing to these projects and initiatives, we're going to have a leak or a gap somewhere. It could be in timeline, it could be in quality, it could also be in high turnover if our resources get burned out because we just say no and we kind of overload them unknowingly on a consistent basis. And also dependencies, and I'm not just talking about lower level dependencies that might be in our detailed project schedule. I'm talking about dependencies of cross-functional, cross-organizational projects that go in within our organization. If we don't have enough visibility so we can manage those dependencies and see that factoring in those dependencies are part of us defining what we can commit to and when we can commit to things, we are missing the boat on a very big constraint, and it's just as big a constraint as resources. Also, troubled projects require immediate attention, and we can't give them immediate attention if we don't have visibility or don't get alerts in sufficient time to where we can have a realistic impact by changing course or correction. They're like, I liken it to like a misbehaved child. The longer you let the situation go, the worse it gets to correct. And the idea is the same thing with a project. And ultimately, PMOs need to speak the language of the business. We're not just a reporting organization. We're not just an IT organization, for example. We have to be actually working in lockstep with the business with the same goals and objectives, really tying back to that whole idea of delivering value to the organization, not just delivering stuff or delivering a project, delivering the right things and delivering the right value. And even though we're going to talk about a software solution today, software alone isn't enough. It's only a part of the equation. It really is people, process, and technology. We have to access and unleash the potential of our people. We have to have process so that we can have complete, repeatable outputs. And we have to have the technology to enable people so that we can collaborate and have one source of the truth. So PPM trends that we see, and we monitor this not only through the analysts, but through our day-to-day operations with hundreds of prospects and customers. And one of the things is the move to the cloud or more digital PMOs. And that's the focus of what we're talking about today with Project Online. Other things that we've done other webinars on, and you can look at those in our on-demand library at wickersoft.com, is the rise of Agile, more new product development types of projects, connected systems and integrations, better visualization of data so that we can get better insights, and then just the whole advent of AI, machine learning, and predictive analytics is part of this as well. But our focus is going to be on this first bullet today of moving to the cloud and digital PMOs. So why move to the cloud? Well, there's a general value proposition on this. If we look at, and I always like this concept of the iceberg, where the bulk of the iceberg that you see above the water is not the lion's share of the volume of that iceberg. If we look at our on-premises solutions, if we just look at license costs, we're only looking at the tip of the iceberg. literally. Licenses is really the part that we see above the water, and that's 9% of the cost of software licenses. But if we do on-premise implementations of solutions, we have hardware, servers, network, et cetera, that we have to maintain. We generally have consultants who have to help us implement or get these things up. We have infrastructure that has to be stood up, maintained, and managed, and then the maintenance around that infrastructure, as well as maintenance and upgrades for the solutions that we have to do over time, which can be disruptive and very labor intensive. And also we need dedicated IT staff to manage the infrastructure, the solutions, and all the things that go in and around those solutions and that infrastructure. Meaning, if we're just looking at the license cost or the license fees that were for a solution, we're really underestimating the total cost of enabling and maintaining that solution. If we move to cloud computing, especially in a SaaS model, it generally has been seen to provide, and one stat by the Yankee Group was 46% lower total cost of ownership. Because there is no real capital investment up front, there's no upfront license fee, no investment in infrastructure and hardware. We don't have the same IT barriers, meaning their bandwidth and their ability to support you. It's a matter, do we just fall into the standards of IT, and they don't necessarily have to dedicate folks to actually manage the actual solution. Ultimately, because there's consistent environments and not the environment variables that vary from customer to customer, there is lower implementation costs. And then because we're in the cloud, there is no more costly and disruptive upgrades. And also you end up with a predictable subscription fee. So you know what your costs are going to be month over month, year over year for a particular solution. The idea being is if you factor all this in, cloud computing always provides a lower total cost of ownership at the end of the day. So what does it mean to go SaaS or software as a service? If we look at the grayed out areas here on the left, those are things that we no longer as a customer have to manage. Now, what's managed by the vendor is the applications, making sure they're running, the databases, making sure the runtime is, and we have uptime. Any middleware, OSs, any virtualization, servers, storage, network, everything is managed by the vendor. All we have to do is access the solution and really manage the process or the business process that is enabled by the solution, as opposed to managing the infrastructure or the IT components of that. Ultimately, it frees us up to spend our time, efforts, and resources on things that are really adding value. The other benefit is really continuous innovation. In the old model, and I'll use Project Server to Project Online as the illustration here. In the old model with Microsoft, a major release for Project Server would come out every 3 years. Now there'd be some service packs and fixed releases that come out incrementally, but it was 3 years that before any significant capabilities or new features would be in a solution. In the cloud, it's more continuous delivery and more continuous innovation. So things get bled out incrementally over time. And even in the relatively short lifespan of Project Online, we've seen a number of innovations on things like Power BI reporting, the resource engagements for capacity planning, higher level, the advent of Office 365 Planner, and other things like that that have come out. They're getting bled out incrementally. What's not on this chart here is Microsoft's new add additions to Project for Project Online to do more agile-based type of plans, more iterative-based plans with sprint planning or more Kanban-like type of approaches. These are things that get bled out incrementally, and people can actually choose to use these things and explore these things at their leisure instead of having it be disruptive to them in the way they actually do their business. So another big advantage of this is getting access to more capabilities quicker. And then ultimately, it's the idea that Project Online is actually enabled through the Microsoft Cloud, through the Office 365 Cloud. Meaning, if you're already a shop, and many organizations are already using Office 365 to some extent, whether it be for their email, SharePoint, or other types of collaboration capabilities, it uses that same cloud infrastructure to add incrementally Microsoft Project Online or Microsoft PPM. And it comes in as a solution that's just enabled for users by the Office 365 administrator, and that it provides an end-to-end capability with permissions that can be determined by whoever administrates the system about what people can access in an end-to-end PPM solution. This goes from upfront strategies where we do ideations in this cases and full-on to high-level planning to help justify those proposals or identify and quantify those proposals. More detailed planning so that we can actually go and execute according to a plan and a schedule and a resource allocation. So ultimately, we actually get high-value outcomes from an end-to-end process. And because we're part of the Microsoft Cloud and the Office 365 experience, it does become just another piece of the Office 365 experience. That being, it's just another solution that's enabled for you in that Office 365 waffle that you get in your browser. And that adds to Project Online or Microsoft Project all the collaboration capabilities you want, all the insights and reporting and analytics, and then the ability to do extensibility with things like Power Apps and Flow and other types of capabilities to really tailor the solution for your specific organization and business process. So all these different capabilities we can look at today: ideate, plan, execute, collaboration, insights, and extensibility, all things that come right out of the box with the Microsoft Project Online offering in the Microsoft Cloud. What are the top Project Online benefits? Well, I don't know if this is exhaustive, but let's get some of these highlights. We have that it is part of the Office platform, so it is basically built on a SharePoint foundation, so it has native integration with SharePoint, or in this case, SharePoint Online, Exchange, and Skype or Link for better collaboration and social capabilities, meaning that because it's not only an extension or just another solution within or application within your Office 365 platform, there are definite inherent synergies and integrations with those capabilities to use them in a project and portfolio management context. It also gives you the ability to have a single governance model from intake of requests or ideas all the way through promoting or vetting those ideas and going through an approval process to where they may ultimately become a project that we work on within the PPM solution. So we can actually have a single governance and intake model regardless of what type of projects they are. And it really provides familiar ground, meaning we have familiar applications where a lot of people are used to using Microsoft Project out there and SharePoint and other Microsoft tools in Office 365, meaning if we add this to that mix, it's really just an incremental learn. It's not a new platform, a new technology, or something else that doesn't really fit with what else you're doing for business productivity, meaning that it can help with adoption, reduce adoption risk, and speed up your deployment time. And the minimal upfront cost, because this is in the cloud, there's no upfront capital cost on large software license purchases and or infrastructure that has to be purchased and provisioned within your infrastructure. And the other thing is you can scale as the business matures, and I look at this on two fronts. We can scale from a capacity perspective, meaning you don't have to worry about sizing server farms because of how you might use it in the future. You don't have to overbuy necessarily because of uncertainty of how big this might get. You can actually have the Microsoft Cloud with Microsoft, and it will automatically provision additional capacity for you as you demand it or as you use it, meaning you don't have to pre-size this stuff, and you can scale as your business grows and matures. And you can also look at this from a business maturity perspective. You can actually use the basic functions within this and get a lot of value in a single repository with the capabilities that make sense for you to use today in a more lightweight fashion, but you can move on to more advanced functionalities like portfolio analysis and portfolio optimization and resource capacity planning and analysis across the organization, and use those later on if it makes the most sense to do so. Just from a visual simplicity perspective, it really gives you a more tile-based or intuitive access to all dimensions of project and resource information in your portfolio. And the reporting that we're going to talk about today really is leveraging Microsoft Power BI capabilities, which is Microsoft's thrust into reporting and analytics in the Office 365 world or in the Microsoft Cloud world. And it has a native feed from Project Online to Power BI to get reporting as a natural output of the process. Ultimately, you end up with a lot more hands-on, readily available decision-making tools from anywhere. For our geographically dispersed teams to different roles in the organization, you can access this from anywhere, especially as we work more in a global economy. So on the ideation front, we get to establish standards and governance, translate strategy into actionable goals, and capture business demand and encourage ideation from our organization and from our people where those ideas really reside. We can establish standards and governance. So the idea is you can configure a project online to meet the needs of your business to ensure that projects follow a desired life cycle and flow. And it could be different depending on the type of projects or what department of the organization it is. So with templates and consistent approaches, we can actually put a good governance model in place. We can also translate strategies into actionable goals, meaning we define business drivers so we can align with strategies, and we can quantitatively provide an impact scale for each business driver so that we can assign weights and actually value projects on a consistent basis as we decide which are the right things that we want to work on. And then as we capture business demand and flow this out into a full-on business proposal, we can actually capture whatever details are germane to our business. We can access all types of demand, and we can easily customize the data entry forms for each demand type so that we actually get the data points that we want so that we can make good decisions on approving projects. And just encouraging ideation, having a place to empower individuals to put in ideas, for us to have a parking lot for this, to where we start here and let these things get evaluated. Let people see what should bubble up and get promoted to the next stage of innovation or bubble up to a full-on business case. But the idea is maybe things are good ideas, and but they're just not good ideas right at this moment. It allows us to capture that as a repository to capture this so we don't lose those good ideas as we move on forward. And this can be done mobilely as well. And then on the planning perspective, we can conduct high-level portfolio planning. We can select the right projects like we talked about, develop realistic project plans based upon all constraints, resource, and otherwise, manage resource demand and assignments, and really manage large programs across this. So we can do the high-level planning for justification as well as tee this up for good execution. So the high-level portfolio planning allows us to visualize the impact the project proposals have on defined business drivers, how much of what we're doing actually supports the drivers that we've identified, and quickly understand the benefits, costs, and strategic alignment of these things, and what we have the ability to do within our capacities. And by selecting the right projects, we can actually optimize our portfolios based on resource constraints, budgetary constraints, and working on the right things based upon our business drivers. And it gives us tools in here that based on our current project mix and our current proposed project mix, we can perform ongoing portfolio optimization as new work emerges, or maybe compete with existing projects to see if we need to maybe pause or kill a project in order to do something that's more important. According to Forrester, 75% of surveyed companies experience better strategic and organizational alignment with the use of Microsoft PPM or Project Online. And then develop realistic project plans. We can get started fast with templates. We can build work breakdown structures. There's now the ability to do that with more agile projects, sprint-based or iterative-based types of plans. And then we can actually put together realistic plans that factor in resource constraints so that when we make commitments, we have a high likelihood or a higher likelihood of meeting those targets and our commitments to our both internal and external customers. Also managing resource demand and assignments. This can be from a higher level resource capacity plan using what's called resource engagements. So I need a business analyst for half time for 3 months on this project, down to detailed resource allocations where I need Jim as the business analyst on this specific task for 2 days at halftime. The idea being is that all together we can look at the aggregate resource demand from the high level initial planning through the more detailed tactical planning that we have to do when we actually execute or actually do the work. And then managing large programs, looking at aggregations of large programs that may be constituted by multiple project plans for different disciplines or different areas or different contributing projects to that particular program. To be able to look at these things individually as their component projects or look at them from a holistic program perspective, Project Online gives us the ability to do that aggregation or isolation of the individual contributing project as we need to do so. And then on the execution side of things, we really want to be able to boost efficiencies with self-reliant teams, assess the impact of new and updated work, visualize project metrics with the reporting that's available, and gain at-a-glance portfolio insights as we're executing so we understand how we're performing during the life cycle of the execution phase. Now, we can boost efficiencies with more self-service or self-reliant teams. It provides the ability for people online from wherever they're at to provide time and task status updates on the tasks they've been assigned so that they can actually feed that information back to the project manager so that they can review and accept those things into their project plan. And they can do it from anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the office. And then they can empower team members to suggest new tasks and have those presented to the project manager to see if they agree that it should be added to the project plan. Or it has the concept of team tasks. So if we assign these to a team, people on that team can self-assign themselves to that task as they free up and become available. So there's a lot of flexibility so teams can become more effective and also provide a streamlined way for them to provide feedback to the organization and to the project manager on what they've accomplished and the progress that they're making. We can also assess the impact of new and updated work. So as those updates come back from the team, the project manager can actually do a view and see what's the impact of accepting this change and agree whether or not the actual update is accurate from their perspective or from their understanding. And we can compare baseline plans to current forecasted plans to see where our variances are and to see where we need to make adjustments or where we need to make up time. And then just visualizing project metrics with built-in reports. You know, we can instantly create a variety of reports, and there's out-of-the-box report packs from Microsoft, and Microsoft extends that with its own report packs. And the idea is that we have reports and dashboards that really become a natural output of just working the process. One of the biggest savings we'll talk about is in report generation. In many organizations today still, it is a manual or at least a semi-manual process that is a painful process each reporting cycle as people have to compile these things and put them into things like PowerPoints and other things. And then just gaining these things at a glance, you know, dashboards compiling multiple report data into dashboards that are tailored for the way you want to look at project information. The idea is to have this information at your fingertips so you can make informed decisions, but also timely decisions. So understand when things are kind of going off the rails, knowing it early so you can still have an impact and make adjustments as needed. On the collaboration side of things, we talked about that. Collaborating in the cloud, leveraging online visualizations of the project plans, having workspaces that the project teams can go to manage issues, risks, changes, documents, etc., as well as leveraging things like Skype in the context of a project management process so we can stay in good communication with our projects teams and our stakeholders. The idea is that whole Office 365 value proposition combined with Project Online is a real powerful way to manage your projects. And then just streamlining information sharing with things like conversation threads and news feeds, and having a single repository at one source of the truth to store all this. The idea here is our teams can look at a comprehensive view of the projects. We can have stakeholders that understand where things are, and then through project permissions or a security model that's built into Project Online, you can determine very readily who can see and do what within the solution that's appropriate. That includes internal and external folks. And then on the insights, this really just elaborates on the reporting side of things. A lot of rich capabilities on dashboards. And those of you that, and more of you probably already have, start exploring Power BI. That is really the strategy for reporting and analytics in Office 365. It leverages Project Online and actually can combine it with data from other solutions and get it into your project and portfolio management reports and dashboards and look at them from anywhere. And that's including on mobile devices. And then on the extensibility side of things, manage projects in a solution that's best fit for you. This is really about fitting the solution to you as an organization rather than the other way around, and making you do things the way the solution wants you to do it. You can enhance and tailor the core PPM experience in Project Online and take PPM to the next level of intelligence. You can manage it your way. It can be a single hub for all of your work. And we have integrations that are already available. Microsoft helps a lot of folks with OneConnect to basically help them potentially use Office 365 Planner as the planner of choice if Microsoft project's too heavy for the type of project that's being done, and have that information feed into the portfolio. We're doing the same things with people who have adopted Agile tools such as Visual Studio Team Services or Jira to basically get those as the detailed planning tools, but feeding into the Project Online portfolio seamlessly. And the same thing with Office 365 Planner. And we'll talk about a little bit that when we do the demonstration piece as well. And then coldest PPM apps using Power Apps so that people can, through their mobile devices, get easy access to the data points that they need and provide updates and visualization. Partners like Microsoft have add-ins that they've developed that are part of the Microsoft Microsoft Office store that you can add in that have been validated and approved by Microsoft. And then the integrations that we talked about from people like Microsoft that allow you to integrate with other things, whether it be financial systems or ERP like SAP, Oracle, etc., or agile tools like Jira, or even say ITSM tools like ServiceNow and other things that are out there in the marketplace. And then if you really want to take it to another level, the whole idea of machine learning and intelligence is really becoming part of it with AI. And if we look at leveraging Cortana Intelligence Suite in the Microsoft Cloud Platform, connected Internet of Things devices that are potentially there, you're going to see more and more of these capabilities emerging to enhance and help us become more effective and maybe help us do more routine things and take some routine things off of our hands as we go through this process with AI on the forefront. Overall, the overall value of Microsoft, there's some higher level value propositions here as well. One of the things is that Microsoft Project is still the de facto largest user base of a project scheduling tool that's out there in the marketplace. And the idea here is that there's many marquee customers that are out there using it. But the other piece is as you hire new people, as you work with contractors, as you work with vendors, the chances that they're going to be familiar to work with you in Microsoft project plans as opposed to some other niche project planning tool is a higher likelihood that you're going to have that familiarity. So more consistent and more collaboration both internally and externally, as well as the fact that there is a user base out there that's trained, ready to go, and could more readily adopt into your PPM solution if it's Microsoft project based. And then if we look at this from a Microsoft Cloud perspective, and as we're looking at that original premise of digital transformation, if we look at that, the Microsoft PPM solution, which is the Project Online solution we're talking about today, becomes one component in an overall Microsoft Cloud strategy. We talked already about Power BI and Office 365 being native. We talked about how there's integrations available with Office 365 Planner and VSTS. Other things that you're doing up in Azure or other workloads you have up in the cloud can be dovetailed with this, as well as we've developed integrations with Dynamics 365, so people that are using CRM or the ERP solutions that are in there, we have integrations so that they can feed into and share data with the PPM solution as well. So the idea is there's a strong value proposition of what Microsoft Cloud organization-wide, even beyond Microsoft PPM or Project Online, which is just a component of that strategy. And then if we look here at Forrester, Microsoft commissioned Forrester to do a total economic impact study of Microsoft Project Online. And I thought I'd just take a moment here to just highlight some of the pieces of that report. What they did is they looked at a number of organizations from different industries. And if we looked at a composite organization, if we look at a blend of that, key assumptions on average of this composite organization it has this type of profile. They had a certain level of revenue, multiple locations internationally. They had a certain number of projects and Project Online professional subscriptions, meaning the project managers would use those. And then Project Online essential subscriptions, which are the team members that would use that, which is often the lion's share of the users that are out there, the team members that are reporting on that. And if we look at the benefits and returns, over a 3-year period, they identified a return on investment of 387% on the investment that was made into the Project Online solution. And the present value benefits were determined to be $4.3 million and a net present value, meaning less costs of that, of $3.4 million. And out of that, it's amazing how much resource management had an impact on that. Out of that $4.3 million present value of benefits, $3.5 million of it was resource management related, meaning improved resource utilization really contributed to 74% of the total benefits that were achieved. And that can be by better resource utilization, finding the resources at the right cost types, reducing things like overtime, et cetera. And the idea is that there's significant benefits to be had that just by having better visibility allows us to react and act in a more efficient manner. So if we look at that, reporting efficiencies, I talked about that earlier on, resulted in 60% time savings for project managers in generating project and portfolio reports. And the improved resource utilization, as I had mentioned, 3.5 million over 3 years. 83% reduction in overtime costs due to increased project visibility, leading to improved resource utilization practices. Also, just in an unquantified fashion, the reports were increased transparency into project performance, meaning that everybody was on board and had a single source of the truth. Improved customer satisfaction, and one of those factors was increased on-time delivery because of this improved process and visibility. And then just the provided synergies with Office 365 allowed for better enterprise collaboration across project and non-project work and other initiatives that are there. Ultimately, I thought what's a great case here is the payback period. And we look out here on the right. The payback looks like it's going to happen somewhere where the break-even point is somewhere towards the end of year 1. When we look at the total cost, which is the initial cost of both getting online and the implementation services that you'd use from somebody like, say, Microsoft, and then the benefits you achieve, those lines cross before year 2, meaning the fact that there's a great value proposition on the return on investment here to moving into a solution like this. So with that, I just thought I would do a brief demonstration and just show some high-level things today, given the nature of the topic we have. And the idea here, as I talked about earlier on, if you're an Office 365 user, notice that what I'm showing here for this project center in Microsoft Project Online, it is part of the Office 365 environment. And when this waffle, as it's called, is there, project just becomes another part of the mix to the other applications you've been enabled for by your Office 365 administrator. Ultimately, what you're going to get is depending upon the permissions you've been given. And if I'm somebody that needs to look and have access to a portfolio, I can look at an entire portfolio of projects here. In this case, I'm looking at a view of projects that are grouped and summarized by their life cycle stage, like requested projects versus approved yet not started projects, and projects that are in process. And the idea, the metrics and the data that we see around those, including KPIs that are formula driven so that we get good visibility into the health aspects of this particular project, are all things that we can have. But well, let's just talk about the reporting side of this. On the reporting side of this, Microsoft Project Online is has a native feed from Project Online to Power BI. And the idea here is that you can have a variety of dashboards, et cetera, in here that can actually allow you to analyze the data, whether it be project requests and look at how these pre-project type of requests are coming in, looking at things like what are our critical requests and analyze those things and what the costs and benefits around those things are. You know, filter them down by request types, like how many of those are application development types of things and what are the costs and things associated with those. We can also come in and look at things like our project portfolio status and get an overall health of the portfolio. And here in the overall portfolio, we can start looking at things like high-level portfolio roll-ups of metrics, but we can look at different summaries of the KPIs and other things in our portfolio that make sense for us to look at, like a portfolio dashboard, like a timeline, how we're doing on things like schedule metrics, how we're doing things on aggregated things like issues and risks across all of the portfolio. On a multiple project basis, what issues do we have outstanding? What risks are we dealing with? What change requests are being considered or have been approved? The idea is we can look at these things in a very native and natural output from the process, as opposed to creating these things over time. Here's some change requests that we might look at on the portfolio, and then overall benefits as well. We can start looking at project benefits and start looking at what those are, not only what the planned benefits are, like what we justified in our business cases, but then what we realized as benefits across the board. And then when we look at this stuff from an individual project perspective, you can actually come in on a project status basis and start having composite project, say, one-pager type of reports that people spend a lot of time for multiple data sources building individually. And the idea here is you can have in one page, and these can be tailored for what you meant, to have your KPIs, to have your data metrics or your objective data, some gauges on how we're doing on cost, resources, and progress. maybe some narrative description and status, as well as things like upcoming and overdue tasks, and other content that rolls up like issues and risks all into one composite report. And the idea here is that we can do this in a variety of different fashions, including the resource dimension, which is very powerful. You can come in and actually look at things like resource status reports, and then look at high-level resourcing and look at where we're either capacity versus demand. And as an organization here, we look to be doing well. But what if I went in and said, you know, I really want to look at how we're doing specifically with our business analyst roles. And I can see we're a little more close to capacity in certain timeframes on our business analysts, and I can see who's over and under allocated there, as well as more detailed utilization information on those things. So as I look at these groups, I can say what the remaining capacity I have on specific individuals all the way down to that mix. Now we have a whole webinar series on our on-demand, as I mentioned before. Go look at that for effective PPM using Project Online, and you'll get a good detailed run through of this in that particular demonstration. The idea here is having online access through your browser or your mobile device in order to be able to look at these types of views and reports is key to having a digital single source of the truth collaborative environment, and Project Online gives us both of those things. So with that, let's go into a summary and a wrap up, and I have some topics here to cover. So one of the things, if you're using Microsoft Project Server today, an older version, say for example, or you're using on another PPM solution, say for example, you know, what are some of the values of Project Online? And just to summarize a little bit in another way, what we showed earlier on is the value of, or the benefits of going to Project Online, is that we have economies of scale. It will easily support peak load times for you and scale up and down as needed with the computing resources that you need without you having to size server farms with a lot of excess capacity to meet that needs. It's a shared infrastructure, meaning you're not bearing the cost of that infrastructure all by yourself in this multi-tenant environment. And ultimately, you have lower operating costs by doing so because you're not maintaining the infrastructure. And all the disaster recovery and backups are included in what you're doing here with Project Online. From a risk reduction perspective, financially backed guarantee of 99.999 uptime in the Microsoft SLAs. We have different layers of security, and there's different tiers of the Microsoft Cloud. So even things, even like DoD or Department of Defense type of companies, there is a Microsoft Cloud option for them that have different levels of security than say what commercial companies might want. And you have all the monitoring and access restriction, and all these things are independently verified and certified through audits, and have all the certifications and audits that are available to you. Strategic spending, resources can spend more time on the business versus maintenance and support of infrastructure, meaning we can start doing things that return more value and are more high value to the organization. And by using OpEx, and these are usually OpEx expenditures to pay for your subscriptions, we reserve more capital that can be invested into the business. And then just from an overall capabilities perspective, remember accelerated release cycles, incremental delivery that are bled out as incrementally as you go on. More feature sets are available sooner to you, and also faster resolution of bugs and incidents because they don't have to wait for longer term release cycles to put those things out. So this is just some of the things to consider. And then just to take some of the mystery out of migration data elements, if you're a Project Server user, the idea is to move that information. There are migration tools available, and Microsoft has a lot of experience in using these to basically move not only your configuration, but all of your data elements that you want, whether it be your project schedules, your resource pool, your SharePoint workspace or collaborative workspace data, timesheet data, resource plans, and other things are different content that you may want to bring over. But I will say this, as you're moving to a more modern solution, just bringing over your current configuration of Project Server as is not necessarily the best idea. It's an opportunity to assess and determine whether or not through lessons learned or things you wish you'd done differently, is it a good time to put in a Project Online configuration that makes more sense based upon your current business climate, and removing the things that you don't like, adding new things that you wish you had, and then moving the relevant data over as you do that. And the other piece of that data element is a lot of folks don't want to move over their entire history of projects that are over there. They might want to move just their active projects that are currently active or in flight, or maybe active and in flight and things that go back 6 months. The idea is we can do some archival things that we'll talk about in a minute that make more sense. And then the configuration elements. If you do want to bring over certain things you've configured in Project Server, those configuration parameters can be brought over using the migration tools as well. And the idea is that it's something that can be done on a more automated basis, but should be done on a thoughtful basis if there's improvements and enhancements and optimization you'd like to make to your future state or your future solution in Project Online. And the migration timeline approach is going to vary based upon the size of your implementation and your content, but the key is it's an iterative process to where test migrations are done, gaps and problems are identified, and things are mitigated before they go into a test environment and ultimately into deployment. And a migration timeline and approach would be built specifically for you. And I think the key thing is this, our whole idea of archive. What do you need to archive, and what do you want to move into the production system moving forward of the new data? And is it going to include things like timesheet data? Is it going to include documents? Is it going to include schedules that you have built? And archive options, even if you don't want them in the new system because they're old pieces of data or old projects, we can maintain them and retain access to that information. And there's a number of options, and here's just some of them. One is we can put out the current project server data into a CSV or an Excel file that can be easily accessed by tools that everybody knows how to use. And you can even use it as a source for a Power BI set of reports so that we can access data in a and the pros of that is it's a low-cost solution. It's a simple solution. Cons, it's not in a database format if you have large volumes of data, and it's not access to easy to access documents, but you can get old data points from your projects at this mix. Another aspect is to actually take your SQL Server database and just keep it on-prem, and it can be in the same format that you have it in today. It can be in the Project Server set of tables and the SharePoint databases, and you can actually access those with Power BI and other reporting tools to access that data. The benefits here over that is in a database or relational database format, and you'll be able to get things like documents out of there easier, etc. And another aspect is where we can actually get this totally off-prem, and we can actually store in a database and actually move your Project Server database for your archived information that has your SharePoint related workspace data up into Azure, up in SQL, so that you don't have to maintain any infrastructure or database maintenance on that at all. And we can actually get some of those things as well. So the idea, we don't have to just move all of our legacy data over, but then we don't have to lose access to it if we do that. So with that, just know that Wickersoft is a full service company. We were founded as a joint venture with Microsoft in 2002. We do have a global footprint, and we are a triple gold certified partner in project and portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. Less than 1% of Microsoft partners have a triple gold designation. We are a one-stop shop. We have business applications like our One Connect integration platform, like our One Plan and One PPM for pre-configured solutions for Project Online to help people get up more quickly, as well as all the consulting services to help get you up in a best practice manner. We also offer education and training options to help enable and help deployment and adoption within your organizations. And if you're strapped for resourcing or bandwidth, we do have staffing services, and for some customers, we actually operate these things as a managed service, and we actually administer systems for certain customers as a managed service. So please do think of us as a one-stop shop, and we're here to support you to whatever degree that makes sense for you. We do all this, and we talked about Project Online today in the far left, but if you think about the Microsoft Cloud pillars for project and work management and just overall work productivity, Microsoft Project is just one cloud option. We also have Visual Studio for agile portfolio management. Not only do we help people enable that, but we help integrate it with project and portfolio management in Project. We do a lot of digital workplace work in SharePoint, since SharePoint is a foundation for all of this. And the idea, we help people enable and build out and optimize those for their organization, as well as folks that use Dynamics 365, and they have CRM and ERP in there. There's professional services automation, or PSA, which is work management related, as well as field service management that we help dovetail into this. Notice down below that they all leverage Power BI and the Microsoft Cloud in their enablement. So the idea is that we can help people at all these different dimensions if you have areas of interest in these. From a next steps perspective, we're happy to offer you a free migration assessment and roadmap, so we can take a look at what you have today and actually see what it would take to get you from where you're at today into Project Online. We actually have some migration tools that will actually access your configuration if you have Project Server today, and actually see where some of the gaps are and tell us exactly what it'll take to do any kind of cleanup and migration move to get you where you're at. So we're happy to provide that to you as an offer if you reach out to us. Also, if you want to touch Project Online in more detail, we can offer you a chaperone trial by Wickersoft where we can enable a Project Online trial environment for you, give you a walkthrough and orientation, and then periodic check-ins to make sure that your questions are answered and that you stay on the right track. Or if you're just interested in shopping and you want a detailed demonstration tailored to your requirements, we can definitely schedule a personalized one-on-one demonstration for you and others in your organization. Best way to reach us is at contact@wickersoft.com. And you can actually go to us.wickersoft.com. Our other subsite, which is project-online.com for more Project Online specific information. And if you're interested in looking about OneConnect, our integration platform to tie these Project Online together with other solutions, go to wickersoft.com/projectconnect and you'll get that information as well. And as I had mentioned earlier, we do have a list of upcoming webinars you can register for and a library of on-demand pre-recorded webinars that you can get to at wickersoft.com/webinars. Now with that, Victoria, were there any questions that came in that we need to address?
Nope, I was able to answer all the questions that came in via chat.
All right, well, thank you everybody for attending. We appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to the opportunity to serve you in some capacity in the future. So please reach out if we can be of service. Have a great day.